Welcome to this presentation on the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Ombudsprogram. Person-centered services provides health home care coordination for over 17,800 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in 18 counties, reaching throughout the Western New York, Finger Lakes, and Southern Tier regions. Our mission: connect people to the care, support, and opportunities that maximize their quality of life. Vision: a community where all people lead fulfilling lives. Core values: people, integrity, and trust. My name's Craig Mennig. I'm the Member Relations Manager. My contact information is cmennig@personcenteredservices.com. My phone number is 607-338-2363. And I can also be reached at memberrelations@personcenteredservices.com. Here today is Rachel Shuman from the IDDO.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you everyone for watching. My name is Rachel Shuman. I'm here to talk to you about the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Ombudsprogram. I'll also talk a little bit about how we work with the different care coordination organizations, or CCOs, including person-centered services. Next slide, please. So just a quick intro to who I am. I am IDDO's Training and Outreach Manager. My experience is I've previously worked helping individuals navigate Medicare and Medicaid, and kind of the healthcare system in general. I'm also personally connected to this work. I know that many care CCO staff and care managers also have personal connections to the work as well. I have 2 siblings on the autism spectrum, so that's my connection, and my background is in social work. So what is IDDO, or the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Ombudsprogram, which is a bit of a mouthful to say, but we'll talk about it. So what is an ombudsman program? So I think for many people, ombudsman is a new term that they've not heard before. It certainly was for me. It actually is a Swedish word that's directly translated to representative. But in general, ombudsmen can have kind of multiple roles, mainly to be an advocate, an educator, and to kind of help mediate or resolve problems. And ombudsmen actually exist in all different types of places. So I think many people are familiar with nursing home ombudsmen, but there can also be ombudsmen in hospitals, universities. There can be government agency ombudsmen, nurse and insurance companies all can have ombudsman programs. So yeah, there's not just one ombudsman. So how we got started. So there was a need identified for an ombudsman program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities here in New York State, for a number of reasons. One is that the service system is really complex. I'm sure you all, if you've been doing this work for even a short period of time, you've realized how complicated it can be. The other reason is that there really wasn't an independent or objective advocate for these individuals. So that was another need identified. And then also, an educator. So someone to provide education and assistance and be kind of a resource of information that people could go to. So what happened was, after this need was identified, a New York State law, Mental Hygiene Law 33.28, was passed. And this law said that the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or OPWDD, was required to fund an agency to provide independent, conflict-free ombudsman services to assist individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and preserve their rights. So kind of what I was talking about before, having an independent kind of objective advocate that wasn't connected to the government or connected to any kind of service agency to offer these services. And so in 2024, the Community Service Society of New York, or CSS, was awarded the funding to build the program that became IDDO, or the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Ombudsprogram. So what is CSS? So CSS has been around for quite a long time, over 100 years, and it is a nonprofit that provides a whole host of services for New Yorkers. But the main mission is to champion a more equitable city and state, and we do this through direct services, through advocacy, and through research. So our direct services are mainly through our statewide live answer helplines and our partnerships with community-based organizations across the state. And we serve around 130,000 New Yorkers annually, and we have different programs. So we have a navigator program that helps people enroll in health insurance through the New York State Marketplace. We have a program that provides education and assistance to those who are dealing with student loans. We have a program that helps people who are getting, denied coverage for, medical care or services through their health insurance. Um, so we have all different types of programming. So feel free to, visit cssny.org to learn more, but that's kind of generally what CSS does. And the reason that part of the reason we were chosen to, start the IDDO is that we actually have experience managing other ombudsman programs. Like I mentioned, there can be ombudsmans in all different types of, for all different types of agencies and settings. So we have four community health advocates, or CHA, the Independent Consumer Advocacy Network, or ICANN, the Managed Care Consumer Assistance Program, or MCAP, and the Community Health Access to Addiction and Mental Health Care Project, or CHAMP. I won't be talking about these programs today, but if you are interested, like I said, you can visit CSS's website to learn more about these other programs. So IDDO's mission is to act as a resource and an advocate for individuals and families as they navigate OPWDD programs and services. So just kind of a review of how we got started. So the law was passed in late 2023. In February 2024, OPWDD released a request for proposals, and in the summer of 2024, OPWDD chose Community Service Society as the agency to build the Ombudsman program. And then the first, 6 months or so of that funding was used to, build the program, hire staff, that's when I was hired to be the training and outreach manager. And then we officially opened the helpline in December of 2024 and began our operations as the Ombudsman. So what do we do? So the most important part of our work is our direct services, right? Working directly with New Yorkers with developmental disabilities and those that support them. The main way we do our work is through our statewide live answer helpline. So meaning that if you or someone you know has a question about OPWDD supports and services, or you're experiencing an issue or problem, you can call our helpline Monday through Friday, and more often than not, there will be a live person that is there to answer your call and try to assist you. Casework means that if your problem is a little bit more complicated, we may work with you on an ongoing basis for some period of time to try to resolve the issue together. Part of that could be, reaching out to your CCO or care manager, or the individual's CCO or care manager, to kind of work together to resolve the issue. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But that's the most important part of our work is working directly with individuals with IDD and their families and circle of support. But we also do education and outreach. So presentations like this one, we attend community events, we create educational materials. And then the third aspect of our work is collecting data. So we try to look at patterns and trends. So if one person in the OPWDD system is experiencing a problem, it's more likely than not that other people are experiencing the same problem. And so we try to understand what these problems are. Is there kind of a way to address this problem on kind of a larger scale? And we bring this up to OPWDD as part of our role as the Ombudsman program. So in terms of what we help people with, we do assist people even before they become OPWDD eligible. So if you're working with an individual who is just starting the process of applying for OPWDD for the first time, we've noticed that there are, some barriers that people experience, especially if they aren't enrolled in health home care management, if they're just starting the process and they don't have, much support, it can be really confusing knowing, what assessments need to be done, what is the criteria, how that application process works. And so we get a lot of people contacting us who just, they don't know where to start or they don't really know where they are at in the process and they just need some guidance and education to be able to move forward and even, begin services. We also, talk about the different assessments that, happen before eligibility and then after eligibility. So things like the CAS and CANs and just kind of, understanding what those are about, what are they looking at, what are they measuring, why they're important. If you disagree with something that's been written in an assessment, what rights do you have, things like that. We also help people explore different housing options. So, just kind of explaining the difference between OPWDD housing and then options outside of the OPWDD system, or, assistance that people can get. So one popular or very common thing that people are pursuing is the housing subsidy. So kind of explaining, what is the housing subsidy? How does it work? How can it help people become, more independent? Answering questions about the role of CCOs and care managers. So um, oftentimes people, will ask us, should I ask my care manager about that? Should I go to my care manager for this? Or I haven't been able to reach my care manager. What do I do? So kind of answering some of those questions. And like I said, that might be an instance where we contact the CCO and try to figure out, hey, this person says they haven't heard back from their care manager. And maybe it's like, just a misunderstanding or communication, issue or something like that. So just kind of answering some of those questions and making sure people feel, oh, sorry, yeah, connected to their care manager and their CCO because care managers serve such an important role. What you all do is so critical to the well-being and independence of New Yorkers with IDD. And so we want to make sure that people are able to really utilize care management services to the fullest extent possible. And then navigating self-direction and other home and community-based services. So as you may know, self-direction is a kind of way that people can choose to receive their HCBS services. It's another kind of delivery system, and some people, it can be so great for for some people, and but it can also be very confusing or difficult to set up or maintain. So helping people kind of navigate some of that process. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, advising people on their rights. In the mental hygiene law, it talks about preserving people's rights, and this is what we're really talking about. Talking about if there is a decision that's made about someone's eligibility or about their care, letting them know what their rights are, that, sometimes it's a right to a fair hearing or a conference, meaning like an informal meeting with OPWDD, or just other due process rights that people have. And actually, speaking of that, in earlier this year, or I'm sorry, I think in late 2025 or maybe earlier this year, we were our number and our information was added to OPWDD notices because again, for the purposes of people being able to call us and letting people know, hey, if you want more information about what your rights are with this letter, or you need help understanding this letter, please call. And so we've been able to help even more people because our number has been included on those letters and notices. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we work with CCOs? So as I mentioned, we really acknowledge the importance of CCOs and what CCOs do. And because of that, we've tried to reach out. I think we've reached out to almost every CCO in the state to really kind of form relationships and also, understand how each CCO works so that we can instruct our staff on how, how the CCO works, what are their policies and practices, so that if we do get members that reach out to us, we know who at the CCO we can contact, what is, what is the best practice for raising questions or issues that might come up. And so we absolutely need written consent in order to reach out and share information with CCOs. So whether that is from the member themselves or from their legal guardian. But if we do have the appropriate consent, we do facilitate conversations or reach out to care managers or CCO staff, depending on what the issue is. Sometimes the issue doesn't really have to do with the CCO, so we may not reach out. Or it could be just kind of a FYI, this member contacted us about this issue, but it's not really, an issue related to their care management. It's separate, but just so you know, they reached out about this. But again, we are very careful to make sure that we have the appropriate permission and consent, and that we're allowed to share information. We also do sometimes support care managers who, again, you're being asked to do a lot of different things, wear a lot of different hats. And sometimes, we'll have research or knowledge of certain subject matter. For example, I worked one time it wasn't with person-centered services, it was another CCO, but the CCO care manager didn't know that someone had a right to request a conference. She knew about fair hearings, but she didn't know about conferences. And so we actually had a phone call where I talked to her. This is what a conference is. This is how you can support your members in requesting conferences. And so by taking the time to really, teach that care manager, now it's not just going to benefit that one member, but every member on her caseload now has someone who knows what to do in that situation. So sharing information, and vice versa. I've learned a lot from care managers who are very experienced and have that sort of practical on the ground knowledge. So it's definitely been, a two-way street. And then, sometimes we even, work together. Sometimes the care manager and IDDO work together to bring something up to OPWDD and advocate on behalf of the member. And we're just kind of there to support the care manager and the circle of support in their advocacy. So that's another way we work together. So again, it's always better when we work together. I know that's a little corny, but it's true. I think the fact that CCOs have been willing to work with us and communicate with us and share information has made our work more successful. And I think I would hope that a lot of the CCOs would say the same. So thank you for those who have already referred folks to us and who've already worked with us. It's, like I said, made our program even more successful. So I just want to be clear about what services we don't provide. So again, we're not here to perform care management services. If someone identifies a need, that's really the responsibility of the care manager. We're going to advise them that, hey, you should talk to your care manager about that, because that's really what they're there for. The other two things that we don't assist with that people ask us about are school services. So especially for, school-age children, things like individualized education plans or Section 504, or getting things, done through the DOE or the Department of Education, is outside of our scope. But of course, if someone contacts us, we'll try to connect you to a resource in your area that may be able to help you. Again, if you have care management, that also might be something that a referral or resource they can provide, but that is outside of our scope. And then help with access to medical care or early intervention. So sometimes we'll get people who ask us about assistance with occupational therapy or speech therapy or ABA or things like that. Again, some of those questions can go to care managers. We do see sometimes insurance related barriers. So, if someone has, if a parent has an employer based insurance and that insurance has denied, ABA interventions, the care manager, that might not really be within the care manager's scope of work as much. And so we do, like I said, we do have programs at CSS that specifically help with insurance denials of that type. So if that is something that comes up and we kind of identify that in the course of talking to you, we'll refer you to one of our other programs within CSS to get that assistance. Since that is something, again, our other programs help with. So as I mentioned, we have a helpline. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5. That means that, you can still call us after hours. We just won't have a live person there to speak with you. But leave a message if you like, or, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Our helpline serves the entire state. And then in terms of language, we have a few counselors who speak Spanish, and we have one counselor who speaks Mandarin and Cantonese. For all other languages, we use a phone interpretation service. So if you are a care manager or CCO staff person, please feel free to give the member or their representative our contact info. They can call 1-800-762-9290. Again, that's 1-800-762-9290. We also have an online intake form, so they can fill it out, or if they're not as tech savvy and you want to help them fill it out, you can visit www.iddony.org/get-help, and that will take you directly to our contact form. And again, here's our contact information. We also have a Facebook page and an Instagram if you want to follow us. We do have an email address. We try not to have people referred through our email. It's just not as, efficient for us. But if anybody has kind of more technical questions, or, hey, is this appropriate to refer this person to IDDO? You can email us, but again, we much prefer that people either call our helpline or visit our website. Of course, if someone has, different communication needs, we can always try to accommodate that as needed. And then Craig, I think you have one last slide.
Yes, so I just wanted to go over with our care coordination team, what our process is when we receive a request from the IDDO. We have a single point of contact process. The member relations manager, me, I am the single point of contact. I receive the request from the IDDO. I ensure the request is clear and that the request clearly outlines what is being asked for. I ensure that the requests are properly funneled. In other words, we all understand that there's some turnover that occurs within our care coordination team. And between the time that Rachel and her team may get something and the time they contact us, the care coordination team may have changed. So I go in there and verify that it's being sent to the right people. I also ensure there's a consent or authorization included on the request. I do not verify guardianship. So if IDDO sends me a request or an authorization that's signed by a guardian, I don't verify that. So the care coordinator will have to do that. I forward the request to the care coordinator and their supervisor. I outline specifically what the request is and the expectation for contacting the IDDO. It is not inconsistent with our expectations. We expect people to get back with the IDDO within 48 business hours. I will put a calendar reminder on my calendar to get back with the care coordination team to see if they have reached out. I retract the receipt of request, the topics, and the responsiveness of our team. I meet quarterly with Rachel and her team to review successes and concerns. The first meeting we had was very valuable, and I report that back to the care coordination leadership. And if there's anything that comes up in the meantime that care coordination leadership needs to know, if there's something specific to perhaps a gap that IDDO is seeing, we can address that with our leadership and address, try to fill that gap. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. If I can. Apparently I can't stop sharing without stopping the presentation, Rachel, so I'm just going to go ahead. I want to say in my experience with the IDDO, they're very good partners. They're very responsive. They're very supportive of our care coordinators. I want people to know that they are not another oversight agency. They're really trying to help people in the same way we are, and they're very, very open, and they're very responsive and reachable. Very few times can you call an organization and have someone pick up the phone or immediately return your call, which is I'm really grateful for. So Rachel, thank you. Thank you for you and your team and the partnership that we've created. It's appreciated.
Thank you so much, Craig. I mean, I could really say the same thing about you and your team. You've been very responsive to us and open to working together, and it's been great to collaborate, and we'll continue to collaborate with you and your team.
We certainly will, and we're looking forward to it. So with that, we will end our presentation, and thank you all for joining.